All right, everybody. I feel like this music, even though it's upbeat and it's giving me a little bit of a jolt, I don't feel like it's doing it justice of like what's going on in my body right now after watching Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano. What a freaking fight we just witnessed. And hopefully you were smart enough to tune in because these two ladies got after it for 10 rounds. Incredible fight. And we're talking about the fight of the year conversation in boxing and combat sports. That fight will definitely be in the conversation. In the end, Katie Taylor gets it done. And hopefully we see it again. And then we see it again after that. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about UFC Vegas 53, most notably another wild main event over at the UFC Apex, which was won by Marlon Vera, biggest win of his career against Rob Font. And then we're going to take your questions at the end. But I am Mike Heck. I got an entire crew with me here. We got Jose Youngs, our boxing enthusiast. There he is. We got Shaun Al-Shatti. I know he enjoyed the fight. It was a good time. And then we have the Prince of Positivity, Mr. Alexander K. Lee, who got a whole bunch of boxing. You watched this thing from start to finish, did you not?
I did. Sorry, I broke the rhythm. I'm sorry. Yes, I did.
What an auspicious start to the program. So thank you all for joining us. We'll take your questions at the end. But Jose, like we mentioned at the beginning, you are the boxing enthusiast. You sold a lot of people on this fight. I think you described it actually perfectly with what we saw. But in the end, your expectations were very high for this.
Mm-hmm.
Did this fight actually exceed those expectations? Because they were extremely high heading in.
It exceeded my expectations in the fact that I thought that I knew the early rounds would be very, very close. As I said in the preview show and between the links, I just thought Katie Taylor was just the better boxer all around. And if Amanda Serrano was going to win, it would have to be with forward pressure and power shots, which Katie Taylor has shown has been maybe her one avenue to defeat, because I think her footwork is second to none in that weight class of women and men's. Like her footwork kept her in this fight, and that's essentially what happened. What I was surprised about is Amanda Serrano not only kept pace with her for those rounds. Like, I did score it for Katie Taylor. I'm sure we'll get into that later, but Amanda Serrano was very game in those later rounds. I thought that was where Katie Taylor was going to just pull ahead by a large margin. And this was going to be like Katie Taylor pulled out the unanimous decision victory. Amanda Serrano at worst is just the second best or just 1B best female fighter in the world. And the fact that it was a split decision, and I did Twitter reacts for the site. There were a lot of people online that scored that for Amanda Serrano. I know both ladies said they would want the rematch. I am absolutely ecstatic because I said that this fight should have been a trilogy to begin with. I started tweeting this because I was giving my running scorecard as the fight was going on. That rematch now needs to be 3-minute rounds, 10 3-minute rounds, 12 3-minute rounds, whatever you want to do. Because with that, if we implement that is a different fight. Both ladies are obviously going to have to approach that fight differently. The fight itself today wouldn't have played out as it did if there were 3-minute rounds, but it just felt like, as all women's boxing matches go, once the round starts, it's almost over already, and you just want more. So Katie Taylor did win. It was pretty close to my scorecards. I think I gave one less round to Katie, but for most of those rounds, that was playing out exactly as I thought it would. But the only thing that surprised me was Amanda Serrano was still in her face in rounds 9 and 10.
Well said. Shaun, you are very good at putting these words out there and painting these word pictures, if you will. And what was amazing about tonight is that, like, it's a little different than last week, because last week we got Tyson Fury, that fight, 95,000 people at Wembley Stadium, and then we flip it over to ESPN Plus and we get Mike Jackson versus Dean Barry inside the UFC Apex. Tonight, we get just a battered and beaten Rob Font. Marlon Vera gets the biggest win of his career, tremendous moment with his family, in a near-empty Apex, and then we turn it on over to DAZN, and here we are. We're watching Katie Taylor slowly, methodically walk to the squared circle with almost 20,000 people just going bananas. Like, it was like going to your local carnival, which is fun and great. And then all of a sudden you push a button and magically you're in Disney World. You're in the Magic Kingdom and it's nighttime and the castle is all lit up and there's fireworks behind it. It's like two totally different lands. Just your overall thoughts of what we saw, the atmosphere, the environment, and how this fight actually delivered tonight.
I mean, man, what a night, right? Just like generally, what a night to go from Vera Font, as you said. I mean, you put it very well. To go from Vera Font and then immediately switch over to Taylor Serrano, that was a real treat from the Blood Gods that we got tonight. I have to say, man, because like I'm not the biggest boxing guy. I'll jump in and out for parachute in for the big fights. Like I'll watch Tyson Fury or something like that. But obviously, I was tuned in this week. You hear how historic this whole fight is, and then all the build up to it. And that was genuinely one of the best boxing fights I've seen in my life. Round 5 in particular was one of the best rounds of combat that I have ever seen. Just in general, the brawling that was going on in that fight, the shifts in momentum, the stakes, the crowd, everything. MSG felt like it was 100,000 people in it. Like everything about this fight lived up to the moment, to the historic nature of it. And also, I mean, it almost felt like, in a weird way, because obviously I'm the MMA guy coming in talking boxing, but it felt like it was the same type of religious experience that some people experienced for Forrest Griffin versus Stephan Bonner, right? Where this is a pivotal moment in a certain sports history, and it's shaped up to be, everything's built around this. Like this is sort of the one that can push it forward, or if it flops, it'll be a big deal that it flops. And it is such a tremendous out of body experience type of fight that as it goes on and it gets deeper into it, you get that telephone game of people telling people like, hey dude, you got to tune into this. People seeing it on social media. Hey, you got to tune into this. This is unbelievable. And we saw it even just in our back, to break the fourth wall. Like you look at the traffic stats on the website, it just climbed up and up and up and up and up as that fight went on deeper and deeper into it. You could tell that more people were hopping on. Unbelievable fight, unbelievable spectacle. Everything about it was spectacular. I felt like Katie Taylor, I wouldn't have been unhappy with a draw. Let me say that. I think, Mike, you said you scored it a draw as well. But either way, we need to run this back ASAP. Do it in Ireland, they've already said, and do it with 3-minute rounds. The 2-minute rounds is obscene. It's stupid. It makes no sense. I understand. Boxing is a bit behind on this thing, but it's 2022. Why are we still having 2-minute rounds when everybody else has 3-minute rounds for the men? So either way, just unbelievable fight and unbelievable spectacle to watch.
AK, you watched this card from start to finish, and you were treated with this incredible main event at the end. 2 things really stood out to me that I will remember for a long time. One, obviously the 5th round, and then the 6th round, Katie Taylor. Although the 5th round was like a wild, crazy, just phone booth fight, it was the clearest round for Amanda Serrano of the entire fight. Like she won, she had Taylor in big trouble, but Taylor was just hanging in there. And then we're thinking, oh boy, all the momentum has gone to Amanda Serrano. 6th round, Katie Taylor comes out and she just battles through and has a great round, and the momentum shifts back in her way. That was a great moment. The other moment for me was, maybe it was 2 moments, 2 different rounds. There were exchanges, then the bell rang, and then there were multiple exchanges after the bell. And I'm sitting there like, what is going on here? Why are they fighting after the bell? And the reason was because the referee couldn't even hear the bell because it was so freaking loud in Madison Square Garden. That was the energy for this fight. So if you watched it live, it was just such a treat. What were your biggest takeaways from this fight overall? Watching it and covering it for the site, and doing a tremendous job, by the way, my best friend.
Oh, why? Thank you. Guys, this is what good promotion can do. Now, does it help? You have the 2 greatest boxers in women's history. Yeah, that's a lot to work with there. People should be interested. Is my video screwed up, or am I? Is it just on my end?
No,
you're good, buddy.
You're just like Bigfoot.
I'm
You're
good.
just blurry. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I look freakish. All right. No. Okay, it's normal. It's better this way. This is what good promotion can do. Okay, listen. Now, again, like I said, you have a lot to work with. The 2 greatest boxers in 2 greatest boxers in women's boxing history. So already there, that's a draw. Then you throw in, of course, Jake Paul, the man of the hour in combat sports. You throw him into the mix. That's going to get a whole different audience of people interested, clicking into it. And then Eddie Hearn, one of the great promoters in boxing today. There's a lot of factors, of course, to make a fight this big. You get Madison Square Garden. You get the history there. You do a great job of telling both women's stories because, again, I'm not like the most hardcore boxing fan. I of course heard of Amanda Serrano a lot because she was involved with Bellator. She fought in MMA, so I heard of her there. And then from there, I learned about her boxing accolades. Katie Taylor, a little more familiar with her boxing, of course. Just she'd been pretty worldwide famous now for a long time. So all these things come together. But I'm sure if 2 years ago you would say, or maybe a little bit further back, you would said, "Oh, Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano are going to headline Madison Square Garden, sell it out, do a pay-per-view, have all this media talking about them." People would have said you were effing nuts. They would say that's not going to happen. So this was a victory, of course, primarily for the women involved, but also just for like the power of promotion, the power of telling a story, and knowing that these two would deliver. You know what I mean? You knew that you could put this level of work and promotion into this fight, and when fight night came around, everyone who tuned in would not be disappointed. People can argue about the result, whether they thought Taylor won, whether they thought Serrano won, whether they thought it was a draw. But that, if anything, that's only going to benefit it more. Now you get that post-fight bump, that post-fight discussion. I wouldn't even say controversy, because it was just a great fight. I wouldn't even call it controversy. And then hopefully a rematch down the road. So it just really could not have gone better. I'm sure we'll see the pay-per-view numbers. We'll get an idea of that in the coming week or in the next couple of weeks. And, it's not going to be, Mayweather level. It's not going to be Conor McGregor levels. But I think when people realize how far women's boxing comes and how how much these women struggle to get this level of relevancy, I think they're going to be amazed no matter what the number is. And it was just such an enjoyable, fun fight, crazy atmosphere. Again, Madison Square Garden, it's a sellout with less than 20,000 people. It's not like the biggest arena, but the fire that people brought to it really did feel like it was 100,000, 200,000 people. It was almost as loud as Wembley was for Tyson Fury's fight. I swear, at least that's the way it came off in the broadcast.
That's what a big fight is supposed to feel like in Madison Square Garden. Like that's, when you were in the 80s, growing up in the 80s and the 90s, when people talked about Madison Square Garden and watching big fights in Madison Square Garden, and even like big moments in pro wrestling, you hear all these stories. And I've been to Madison Square Garden a couple of times. I was there last time I was there was UFC 244, and yeah, there was a buzz in the building for Masvidal Diaz. It was cool for the main event. Rest of the night, you didn't get anything close to what we got tonight. Nothing even close to it. It was just amazing. It was one of those like sort of throwback moments in combat sports where, and it was two women delivering, which was incredible. So hopefully they can run this one back. I thought the promotion was fantastic. Eddie Hearn, Jake Paul. Yes, at times I feel like those two getting the shine, did it kind of take away from things in a way? Yes, from a purist standpoint, but it actually built interest for this fight, like Jose talked about. Jake Paul, very polarizing individual. Eddie Hearn, again, if you're bored one day, let me just tell you all, if you're bored one day and you're like not feeling well and you're looking for something to do to pass the time, just YouTube search Eddie Hearn and just watch his interviews or anything he does, and you'll be blown away. You'll be hooked. There's a rabbit hole that you just don't want to climb out of.
I've said this a few times, but in the peak of the pandemic, before we had like vaccines and everything, and I was having to drive to Las Vegas like every other week for like one of those Apex shows, and we're still having virtual media days, and everything in Las Vegas was shut down. Our good friend Oscar Willis and I would just sit in his apartment, and we would literally pass the time watching every single Eddie Hearn interview out there. Like we text each other Eddie Hearn interviews, just like the stuff that he says is the best. So do yourself a favor. The next time there's no UFC fight or Bellator fight on a weekend, literally just watch Eddie Hearn videos and you'll know what I'm talking about.
It's tremendous stuff. By the way, Jake Paul tweeted out about 10 minutes ago, just one word, and that word was robbed. Feels like he was robbed. Was Amanda Serrano robbed? Does anybody have an argument here that they want to present that Amanda Serrano was robbed tonight?
I don't think close fight, as AK has said many a time, not all close fights are robberies. I scored it for Katie Taylor. I can very easily, like if someone wants to argue that Amanda Serrano won, I'm not going to argue back. She, I think, very obviously had the more power shots in several of those rounds. She had a late flurries a lot, and I think Katie Taylor was very flustered, didn't know really what to do in there a few times, but I think just her boxing acumen and IQ just kind of pulled it out at the end. But if someone wants to argue that Amanda Serrano won, or at worst it's a draw, I'm not going to argue. I think a split, when that fight ended, I'm like, this is going to be a split decision for one lady or a draw, because I can't see any judge I can't see all three judges agreeing on that. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was like 1-1 draw, if that makes sense. Like it could have been anything.
Pride rules.
By the
Pride rules.
way-
Serrano.
Yeah, that was
Pride rules. There's your robbery. If you're going by pride rules, Serrano had the biggest round
Sure.
five, round five,
Yeah.
and almost finished the fight. She's of the two, she's the closest who came to finishing the fight. So pride rules. There's your robbery. But I mean, I scored it for Taylor. So
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was
Mannix.
going to say. AK. It's like I don't know that boxing
sensed it.
fans ever say by pride rules somebody won. I'm sure that is not in the lexicon of boxing fans, but I would agree by pride rules Amanda Serrano won. But either way, I don't feel like there's a real loser coming out of that fight, right? Like I know that's super cliche to say, but like that was everything it needed to be. It totally held up in the moment. And I think both women come away from that looking like stars. And I think the rematch is just going to be huge because there's going to be a rematch.
Yeah, and
Well,
you know
they're,
who's not calling? You know who's not calling robbery? Amanda Serrano. She was like very gracious in defeat. Like both women would have been that though, because they understood the moment. This is important for women's sports. No one's gonna
Yeah,
call. I'm more surprised that Amanda Serrano's coach, who historically has he got like suspended from his last fight for like 6 months or whatever after Amanda's last fight because he was just being absolutely horrendous to Amanda Serrano's opponent. And Amanda Serrano dominated her. And he was just throwing a fit and just saying the most horrendous things to her opponent that he got suspended by like one of the boxing commissions or whatever. So like I am more shocked that he didn't throw a fit than anything else in this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the first Woodley Paul fight, right? Where he did that. Yeah, I remember that. He was not acting right.
Because Amanda Serrano fought a Mexican woman, and he was so annoyed that they game planned for like this hard-nosed, gritty Mexican fighter, and that's not what they get. That he just belittled her opponent the entire fight and got suspended for it.
Well, luckily, cooler heads prevailed here. And now the second fight's going to be gigantic. And if Amanda Serrano wins, the third fight will be ginormous. So kudos to both ladies. Kudos to everybody involved here. Eddie Hearn, even Jake Paul, everybody involved. Well done. You sold out MSG. 2 women headlined. Amazing stuff. Amazing fight. Cannot wait to see rounds 11 through 20 or however many rounds and however many minutes we get to see. I am all in. So congratulations to both women. Congratulations to Katie Taylor for picking up the massive win. Now, before that amazing fight happened, we had another crazy main event. This time in the world of mixed martial arts, 25 hard minutes in the UFC's bantamweight division. In the end, Marlon Cheeto Vera picks up the biggest win of his career. I scored it 49-46. MMA Fighting's official stance on the scoring is 49-46. 2 of the judges agreed. 1 judge scored it 48-47. But Marlon Vera, massive win. He moves up the rankings. Rob Font drops the second straight. Jose, we'll begin with you. Your thoughts on Cheeto Vera's performance, what he did, and just what this man put on the line tonight, because he's a freak. The man is an absolute freak.
I mean, I can't remember the last time I picked Marlon Vera to win, because every time I pick him to lose, and he just gets better and better and better. I will say I am a little curious if like Rob Font has some sort of injury in there, which is like, or heading into this, like maybe he couldn't do as much cardio as he could, which is why he maybe missed weight, because he did obviously seem to fade near those final rounds. But that could also be because Cheeto Vera like kneed him and kicked him and elbowed him a lot in the face. Like that did not look fit. That person that left the octagon did not physically look like Rob Font. I saw Rob Font go in. I didn't see Rob Font go out. I saw him wearing a real bloody mask in there leaving. So yeah, Marlon Vera seemed to be having the time of his life in there. And if he gets one of these big fights on like a big card in like a co-main event spot or something like that, he's going to be a rock star, because he is so fun to watch. Like when he was dancing in there, and like when Rob Font threw that elbow and he was like, oh, that tickles, and was like rubbing his head in the middle of the thing and like laughing and pointing at Rob Font. That fight was a lot of fun to watch. Obviously it was uncomfortable at times because Rob Font seemed to be taking a lot of damage. The belt, he had 2 buzzer beater saves. Like he was, if there were 10 seconds left in those rounds, I would not have been surprised if Jason Herzog stopped that fight, because he was getting a beating. I can't remember the exact rounds. It kind of all blurs together, but yeah, Rob Font got saved twice by the belt. Not a great look. And the UFC has a new top 5 bantamweight on their hands in Marlon Vera.
Shaun, he was saved by the bell 2 rounds in a row, and then in the 4th round, you put something in our Slack channel that you just thought Marlon Vera was outright sadistic, because you felt like he could have just gone in there and finished it. But the sadistic side of Cheeto Vera, maybe it's the weight miss, maybe it's just what this man becomes when when the fight begins. But you felt like after that knockdown in the 4th round that he could have just pounced and ended the fight, but he just wanted to drag this out a little bit longer. So your thoughts on Vera's performance? And this is a huge win for him, man. Huge win, first main event, and he delivers.
I think huge is probably an understatement, right? Like, this is the biggest win of his career, and it's not even close. Like, we can go back to the Sean O'Malley thing. Like, that's probably, in terms of hype and name and whatever, that maybe people will call that the biggest win of his career. Nah, it's this, man. And it's wild that this place that we have sort of reached with Marlon Vera. Because if you remember, like, going back, way back, like, this is a man who's been in the UFC since 2014. When he got to the UFC, he was really just kind of like this afterthought on the Ultimate Fighter Latin America. He wasn't, talked about as, this big time prospect or anything like that. Like, he's just this guy coming from Ecuador, like, who no one really had any idea who he was or of his skill set or what he could become. Loses 2 of his first 3 in the UFC. Even after his first 7 in the UFC, he's 3-4. Like, he has a below 500 record. He's like 4 years deep in the UFC at that point. Like, he is a guy that we have seen for a long time. And at that point, I think a lot of people sort of cap where you are, your ceiling, right? Like, who you could become. It's just like, we've seen this guy for 4 years. He's kind of just a middling average featherweight, bantamweight, kind of going back in between. Like, he's not going to be anything. And now all of a sudden, man, look at this. Like, it's almost been 10 years of him in the UFC. I think he's on year like 9. And he is just a murderer in there. Like, he is a genuinely unbelievable, the degree to which he has evolved on all levels of his game. Like, he is an all-around force in there. He's ferocious. He's mean. Like, he has charisma for days too, when he's in there, when he's out of there. Like, everything about it. Like, this is the breakout win he has been looking for. And it was sensational to watch. And I frankly, again, like you said, Mike, like, the fact that he didn't finish it almost just let him drag it on even farther and farther. And it just got more and more brutal. The way this ends up, the stats on this fight, like, if you ever need a great example of why stats don't really work in MMA and like why stats don't begin to tell the story with some fights, go ahead and look at this stat. Go ahead and look at this fight, I should say, because Rob Font outstruck Chito Vera 271 to 159 on significant strikes. 271 to 159. That's more than 100 significant strikes advantage. And yet this wasn't even close. Like, if you had a friend who didn't watch this fight and then they just saw the stats, they would come to you and be like, man, Rob Font really put it on Chito, didn't he? Like, it is just crazy. Where Chito has come at this point in his career and who he has become, because he absolutely is a top 5 contender at this point in this bantamweight division, but also just like the way this fight plays out and the way it illustrates just some of the weird nuances with MMA in terms of statistics and the way people try to argue decisions with statistics.
Yeah, man. Rob Font in his last couple of fights, if you ever want to just break down judging in 2022, those are the 2 fights you watch, the Jose Aldo fight and this one, because same thing in the Jose Aldo fight. Outlanded Aldo, doubled him up, even tripled him up in most of the rounds, but still 50-45s, 49-46s for Jose Aldo. Those are the 2 fights you might want to show your friends who are just getting in MMA, who don't know how the fights are scored and the judging criteria. Those are perfect examples. Great win for Marlon Vera. Our own Jed Meshew on MMA Decisions scored that fight 49-43 for Marlon Vera. It is up there for the world
or a
to see.
typo? Was that a
No,
joke
of
or a
course, he
typo?
was dead
Of course
serious.
it's not.
So what would that be? That'd be like 10-8s and 10-7s. What would that be? How do you even get to that?
It would be what? 10-9.
Like 3
It'd be
10-8s.
1 10-9 and 4 10-8s.
Okay. Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. No, I don't know. Maybe 2 10-8s. I don't know.
I
think it's 2 10-8s. No, that's what it is. 2 10-8s.
Yeah, look, Marlon Vera, I hate to use this. I don't know why I hate this phrase when people go like, oh, so-and-so understood the assignment. This man understands the assignment. I mean, look, he's going out to finish fight anyway, regardless of judging. But and he also doesn't strike me as a guy that would care to necessarily read the criteria, but it really feels like he knows it. Roxanne Modafferi, for anyone who didn't read it, did like a editorial for what's this? The All Star. This site called the All Star, where she was just talking about judging, kind of giving her own perspective on it, talking about her own experiences, but also in the context of the official criteria of scoring, which she linked to in the article. So guys, look that one out. Support Roxy's fighting career, because she's trying to educate herself and other people about fighting, and she knows pretty much everything about it. She fought forever. So Marlon Vera, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I was saying before the show, guys, I was focused primarily on boxing tonight. I didn't really get to pay close attention to the UFC main event. So if I did look at just the stats and hadn't been keeping up with social media and hadn't been talking to you guys, I would have said this is a straight blow for Rob Font. Shaheen, you mentioned the total striking stats. It sounds even more absurd going round by round. Round one, 57. These are all every round won by Rob Font. Significant strikes. 57-26 round one. 51-27 round two. 71-37 round three. 42-36 round four, and 50-33 round five. So it looks crazy. And then you see also round two, one knockdown Marlon Vera. Round three, one knockdown Marlon Vera. Round four, one knockdown Marlon Vera, which makes it a little bit more clear that Marlon Vera did win this fight. It's. I think we pretty much all of us, when we were doing our predictions, whether we picked Rob or whether we picked Cheeto, were saying, man, we really think Rob's the better boxer. He's going to outstrike him. It seems a little bit like the Aldo fight. But man, Vera's going to be able to do some damage. And if he does enough damage, then it's going to go the other way. It played out exactly how. I'm not sure who you guys picked. I picked Font because I thought he'd be able to avoid the getting rocked that many times. I was wrong. So, I mean, good on Marlon Cheeto Vera. That's, again, clear decision for him.
100%. Cheeto's was in every round, but he lost at least the first 3 rounds. He lost 4 minutes and 40 seconds of the first 3 rounds. All of them. Clear as day. Rob Font cruising, and then a kick to the body or kick to the head or something. Font goes down, Cheeto pounces, and he steals the round. And that's just been kind of the story of Rob Font's last 2 fights. Because again, you go back to the Jose Aldo fight, Font looks so good in that first round against Jose Aldo, and then he gets dropped with 10 seconds left of the round, loses it. Momentum shifts to Marlon Vera, shifts to Jose Aldo, and then everything just goes downhill. And to make matters worse, gentlemen, go ahead.
Real quick, let me just add to what you were saying, because you had a great point there, which is the diversity from Cheeto was really something else, because every time he knocked him down in that fight, unless I'm mistaken, was with something different. It was with a different strike than the previous time he got knocked down. So it was just the diversity all around from Cheeto was tremendous. He had Rob Font guessing the entire time, and every time he was landing something different.
Was it the mixing of the martial arts? Are you saying it was the mixing of the martial arts?
He mixed the hell out of the martial arts.
Damn it! Hashtag keep the martial arts apart. Or apparently not.
And here's the scariest thing about Marlon Vera, and a lot of you gentlemen alluded to it. There's this great quote that I thought of watching this fight as I'm doing the live blog. Bob Marley, one thing about good music is when it hits you, you feel no pain. Rob Font must have been singing Bobby Brown songs all night long, because those are great songs. And as much as those songs and those lyrics are coming out, Marlon Vera was just loving life. He got hit 300 times, and it looked like he was just he was painting with his children. It looked like he walked around his neighborhood. Didn't even look like he was in a fight. He got punched in the face almost 300 times. Rob Font looks like a totally different person. Marlon Vera looks like he didn't even get into a fight. It's crazy. How scary is this guy, Shaun, knowing that you could hit this guy 300 times and it has zero effect on him? I mean, zero.
If only it seems to fuel him. If nothing else, he seems to get off on it and kind of gets better from it. So yeah, absolutely, man. But I will say, just following up on what we were talking about with Rob Font, the last 2 fights for this man have been really brutal. And this is a man who I think a lot of us felt like was, if not a future champion, was definitely going to be in that conversation for a long time. And now all of a sudden we're waking up on Sunday and he is 34 years old, and the amount of damage he has taken in these last 2 fights is almost alarming to the degree, right? How he looked at the end of the fight tonight, just send that guy right to the hospital. And so bantamweight's not a division you can be old in, and especially fight years too. That stuff will catch up to you real fast. And I don't know, man. I'm starting to worry a little bit about Rob Font and his ceiling now in this division. Because again, he's a guy who's 34 years old. It took him a bit to get to this point. And now all of a sudden, these last 2 have really opened up and revealed a lot of different deficiencies in his defense and just his game overall. And you can only do that for so long in these divisions.
100%. And to make matters worse, gentlemen, the fight of the night was Marlon Vera versus Rob Font. And normally we would be like, oh, you know what? Rob Font, I mean, at least he gets an extra 50 G's, right? Wrong, because he missed weight. So he doesn't get the 50 G's. So Marlon Vera is what? He's getting the 100 G's, right? So it just gets even better for Marlon Vera and a little bit worse for Rob Font, right? Because he doesn't get this bonus because he missed weight, right?
He doesn't get the
Yikes.
bonus because he missed weight. He doesn't get his full show purse his full show purse because he missed weight. He doesn't get his win bonus. So like all of this money that he potentially could have earned is really just whittled down to like this because of how this went. And that is a man who, again, suffered a lot of damage today. These dudes don't get paid enough.
Sheesh. Unbelievable. So great win for Marlon Vera. Excited to see where he goes next. He's living up to the potential a lot of people have had for him. Also, shout out to Joe Anderson Brito and Francisco Figueiredo getting performance of the night bonuses. Joe Anderson Brito, holy smokes, what a performance. Puts Andre Fili away real quick. And then Figgy Biggs, I guess I'm going to call him, with a slick knee bar. It's knee bar city in Las Vegas. Everyone's just getting knee barred left and right. So great performances from those guys. There were a lot of great performances tonight. A lot of potential bonus money that could have happened. And now we're going to turn it over to the peeps. And we'll see what you guys have to say about the festivities, because I know we didn't break down everything fight by fight, but it's all good. We had the two amazing main events. And then if you guys want to fill in the blanks, we shall fill in the blanks with your questions. Casey is here.
Hey, everyone.
Let's get after this thing.
I got to say, I co-signed the Figgy Biggs nickname. I like that a lot.
Figgy Biggs.
Yeah. Figgy Biggs. Let's go.
We didn't get this question, but I want to hear from you guys because that's my question. We talked earlier about who has more to lose in this fight, and we said Rob Font. If Rob Font loses this fight, though, this is worse than Vera. Is Rob Font? Is he ever going to be a title contender? Is this the last we've seen of Rob Font in that kind of upper echelon bantamweights?
After tonight, I would say I don't think he fights for a UFC title.
Yeah. Unless
yeah.
just
You never say never,
unless,
but I agree.
Yeah, unless just insane luck falls on his lap. Like takes a couple of short notice fights, makes weight, gets big finishes, and somehow gets his way back in there. At this point, yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate. It's just because we were coming into the fight. We always kind of who's got more pressure, and now when it happened, I was like, ooh, yeah, I think we were correct, and like Rob Font had to win tonight, and yeah, we saw it.
Yeah,
unfortunate. I mean, good for Vera, obviously, but yeah, it's just how it goes.
Yeah, and Vera's such an interesting guy too. Like he's a really interesting guy with a really interesting story. Mm-hmm. Not saying Font's not an interesting guy, because he is an interesting guy, but he's just, they have that Patriots mindset where it's just like, we're not going to look ahead. We're not going to talk trash. We got business to attend to. And then once the business is over, we're going to stop talking for a couple weeks, and then it's on to the next thing. Like it's just cut and dry. What is next for Chito Vera? AK, we will decide that tomorrow. But we'll let Shaun Al-Shatti and Jose Youngs be the resident matchmakers here. Sean, where does Chito Vera go after the biggest win of his career?
Jose and I are going to disagree on this because I already know what he's going to say. It's Corey Sandhagen. It's got to be Corey Sandhagen. That feels like the most obvious next step. I think he's going to say someone a little higher, and to me, it doesn't feel like. I feel like that'd be a bit too much of a jump right now with what we just saw. I love the Corey Sandhagen matchup. That dude, Corey Sandhagen's in that spot where he needs a win, or he's going to start falling back to the pack if he loses again. And Marlon Vera, that's like a perfect vault up to see. Like I think we all still, a lot of us on this website believe Corey Sandhagen is a future champ in this division. I love that matchup, but go for it, Jose.
I mean, I'm not going to say no to Rob Font versus Corey. I mean, not Rob Font. Chito Vera versus Corey Sandhagen. I'm not going to say no to Marlon Vera fighting anyone above him at this point. Like, obviously, I tweeted selfishly, it's not going to happen. I just want to see Marlon Vera and Peter Yan get into a fist fight over 5 rounds because that would just be fun. But it's not going to happen based off of these arbitrary rankings that everyone has, including this site. I'm on
How
the
dare
boat
you?
that Peter,
How dare
I don't have a vote. I don't have a vote. So I'm still in the group that I think I want Peter Yan to fight Henry Cejudo first when Henry Cejudo comes back. But I also selfishly, as I said, I want to, after this fight, this fight just proved that Jose Aldo should probably get be the number 1 contender right now because he beat Marlon Vera pretty convincingly, and we all thought that Marlon was going to not break a sweat against Marlon Vera. And look what he did. I don't know. I think because Marlon Vera is not going to fight for a title next. Petr Yan's not going to fight for a title next. If people are going to say like, oh, I don't want Petr Yan knocking off a contender because he's 0-2 in quotes against the current champion Aljamain Sterling, fine, then have him fight Marlon Vera because that fight is just fun, and I think that would be everything that a Corey Sandhagen Petr Yan fight would be. But if we're gonna get Corey Sandhagen versus Marlon Vera, so be it. What a second place fight that would be. But like, honestly, who's gonna fight Merab? Honestly, who's going
Henry
to fight
Cejudo.
Merab?
Henry
Like,
Cejudo.
it's not.
That's the fight.
Henry Cejudo is not going to fight Merab, nor do I want to see him fight Merab. Like, so that's 2 strikes right there, and he's going to say no. So that's the 3rd strike. It's 3 strikes right
get
there.
him
That
out.
fight is not going to happen.
Nobody cares he's coming back. Nobody cares he's coming back. Prove to me you want to come back and be the champion of this division. Go out and beat Aljo's best friend in the whole world, Merab Dvalishvili, the guy who has his back. You go out there and you beat Merab, Aljo's coming for you. He's picking up the phone. He's calling you up, saying, meet me out in Las Vegas. Meet me in that octagon. We're going. We're fighting.
Yeah,
You ain't getting the title shot, dude. It's not happening.
It's
not
just
happening.
not going. I wouldn't mind seeing I wouldn't mind seeing Yan fight Merab too, because they talked a lot of trash in Russian when we were in Jacksonville.
Sure, I agree with that too.
Is there any love for
Also, Henry's just taking drive-bys out here for no reason at all. He's not even related to this conversation.
Yeah, I know. He's not even part of like, who cares about Henry Cejudo?
Also,
Henry Cejudo's just sitting at home.
Also, like, not for nothing, Henry
Nobody
Cejudo
cares.
is a very talented fighter. I just want to see him fight anybody.
Yes,
but
he was
I
a
want
very
to see him
talented
fight.
player.
Ooh, was. Look at that. Look at this
And
guy.
people, yes, before he retired, and until he gets back in there and fights, he is still retired in my eyes. He was very good, and he had the biggest misstep in the history of sports by retiring when he retired. It was a terrible
biggest in
misstep.
the history of sports.
Wow. One of them.
All sports.
I'm gonna go on record saying I don't know. Len Bias doing drugs at the night he got drafted is probably a bigger
Ooh,
misstep because
okay.
he's died. So that might be a little bigger. In recent MMA history, Henry Cejudo is probably there.
Recent MMA history. Come on now. That's up there. I'm not comparing Len Bias to Henry Cejudo, but one of the all-time blunders in the history.
Hey, they were your words, not mine.
Yeah, you said all.
I didn't say the number one.
You said all time. You said all time. I don't know.
One
OJ
of-
Simpson just doesn't
one
do
of
that
them.
too.
One of them.
I have to say,
Terrible
too,
decision.
This is unrelated, but it's somewhat related. I just got a text from a buddy who's a casual fight fan who just hadn't watched the fights, and he texted me, "Man, I just saw the stats. Rob must have really messed up Cheeto."
Are you serious?
So there you go. I swear
That's
to God,
hilarious.
Easy.
I just got him. I cleaned it up a bit. I had to censor
yeah.
myself, but yes,
That's so
essentially what I
funny.
just got.
Oh, but real quick before we go off this, it can be yes or no question, yes or no answer. Why? Any love for running back Cheeto and Song Yadong?
No, Cheeto's
not?
on an upward. Cheeto's
Song
too high up
Yadong
right now.
Song Yadong just knocked out retired Marlon Marias.
To me,
He's
Cheeto
on
is
a
a tier
10-fight win
above
streak
him
here.
right now.
But why?
He's a tier above him right now.
Yeah, I don't. I just think, well, I think having me in the main event really helps. I think that really helps. So
Yeah.
on the focus. If this was like the third fight in the card, but I get it. But
Also,
yeah, I would
it's
love
one of
you.
those things. It's one of those things too, where Song Yadong's 24. He's got a long road ahead of him. Like Cheeto's been at this for like 10 years. He doesn't need to take a step back right now. Like this is
it a
his
step
moment
back?
to be.
Wait,
That would be a huge step back. Yeah.
Where's
Marlon Vera is gonna be a top 5 UFC fighter on Tuesday.
based on
He
Rob's
ranks number 5
Rob's
in UFC
ranking.
ranking.
Based on Rob's ranking. Okay.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Like this is
so
like
he
this
would
is
have to
Cheeto's
back
moment.
like 6 spots to fight Song Yadong. No way.
Well, that's the
I
thing.
can't-
Once
I
you
can't
fight
say
a guy
it's
in front of you,
crazy.
I always say you fight the guy behind you next fight. But that's not how this works.
Mike, that was
not
my on
6
to the next.
spots behind you.
Mike, that was my on to the next one pick after the last time Song Yadong fought. Was I said he should fight the Rob Font Marlon Vera winner. So
There you go.
Yeah.
Now you
Oh, yeah.
can go with
Casey,
that.
you're not crazy.
Probably not
Yeah.
go with that.
Yeah.
There you go.
I
One pick
like-
done.
Song versus
You
Vera.
you just had someone say Song Yadong O'Malley. I
That
like
was a mistake. That was a mistake.
I like that.
I kinda-
too.
I
But Song
kinda
Yadong
like
O'Malley
that.
is cool too. Yes, that's good too. All right.
That's actually a really good fight to make.
Yeah.
But two young guys,
Song
Cheeto
and-
Yadong. Yeah, listen. Well, they'll see. We'll see it someday. I have a feeling we'll see those two fight again someday when their stakes
I
are
mean-
much higher than where they're at.
But he wants that one back, right?
They would be at right now.
Cheeto Vera
that's
wouldn't say
another-
no. Cheeto Vera would
That's
say
another
yes to me.
thing. Well, yeah, he'll say yes to anything. But that's another thing that's crazy to me about this whole Cheeto evolution is like that dude's not even 30 yet. That guy's 29 years old somehow, and he's been in our lives for like 8-9 years. It's nuts.
That was his
We
19th
really watched
UFC
this guy
fight.
grow up in the UFC.
Hey man,
19th
fighting
UFC
in the best weight class in the world.
That's not true. 155.
No one here to say otherwise.
So I can't hear you. Your mic's broken. I can't hear exactly what you just said. Just want to know a lot of shared enthusiasm from the people online. So just want to put that out there.
Craig was hyped all week, exceeded his expectations.
Not winning
hype.
our poll.
Absolutely.
Not winning our poll, by the way. I threw a poll which show had the better main event. UC Vegas 53 winning in a landslide. Now we probably do have an MMA. Our audience probably a little MMA biased, in fairness, but 62%
Probably
UC
didn't
Vegas
watch it.
53. Probably didn't watch the boxing. That's fine. 38% Taylor versus Serrano. So I don't know. Maybe that's even a stronger. Given our the makeup of our audience, maybe 38% for Taylor Serrano is actually like pretty high.
Agreed.
There was a sold out Madison Square Garden, and there were 15 people watching live for the Apex card. That's just, yeah, okay.
Also, I am
rowdy. It was a rowdy 15 people in that Apex. I was
I
hearing heckling all night.
I am also just kind of asking what was the better main event. I think
want to
people
say
did watch both.
Yes, sir.
Because I've been to like a million of these Apex cards. Like, I'm not trying to be a dick right now. Like, I generally don't know. Have any of you guys been to an Apex card? Like a fight inside the Apex?
During the pandemic, not with fans. Not with fans.
Not like
Dude, it's great. It is fun because it feels like you're in a high school gym, and the gym, like the seats are like split in half. So like one side is all one fan base and one side is the other, and they can still bring in flags. So it's a lot of fun. So like when Yair and Max Holloway fought, it genuinely felt like two rival high schools getting into a fist fight. So like I know there's people on the MMA Hour that always poo-poo the Apex and this and that. I don't hate it, especially for like these types of fights when you have like fan bases like this, because it gets lit in there. It's a little expensive if you want to buy a ticket because of the lack of seats.
Well, that's the UFC's decision. They could sell those seats $50 if they wanted to.
It seemed like this particular group that was in the building for this particular night were a little extra saucy. Like a little extra saucy. We had some Bisping sucks chants thrown in there. Was
that Luke Rockhold in the crowd?
What was the post-fight interview? Is Bisping got a "you suck," but he was interviewing somebody else?
Oh, yeah. What was that?
I'm trying to remember. There's something. Fans are not happy with this person who got announced the winner. I don't know.
You know, hey, if you're that type of fan and you want to make sure you're heard, pay your money for UFC Apex card.
Yeah,
I don't
this
know.
Would have been
I know the
excellent
fight
Paul
you're talking
Felder
about.
night.
I know the fight you're talking about, Mike, because there was also a bunch of boring in the background of the post-fight interview too. So I don't know what that was.
Was that the Jotko Mearshart fight?
Jocko? It's gotta be Jocko.
It might have been Jocko, yeah.
Which
I like that. That's the thing that like lets you remember what it was. Is boring. Okay, yeah.
You know, we talked about fights that delivered has advertised. Jocko Mearshart was exactly as we thought it was going to go.
It was actually better. It was a little bit. So? It was better.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I
mean, the middleweight fights.
How about that Jocko? Two straight now, 5 of 6. Guy just finds a way.
I mean, how about Andre Lasky?
Oh my God.
This question is for Mr. AK Lee.
Oh, please.
Okay, well, get 30-27 loses split.
So I have to do a robbery review. As soon as the fight was over, I got a couple of messages saying like, you know what to do. You got to do it. So there will be a robbery review on by Monday. Again, this was in the thick of one of the fights on. I think this was in the thick of one of the fights on the Taylor Serrano card. So I actually could not watch. I was very sad. I did not get to watch what I expected to be a very Andre Arlovsky-ish fight. But I did see. I was looking at my feed. I saw a ton of robbery talk. It is always crazy when one fighter gets a 30-27 and still loses. It's one of the most inexplicable things. But I will have to watch the card to see. Well, it sounds like this was a justifiable card. I'll have to watch to see how the other judges came to 29-28 for Andre. But hey, congrats to Andre. He makes again. I don't know if that's the case with this fight. I didn't get a chance to watch closely. He finds a way. He finds a way to get to that decision. And once it goes to the cards with him, you really never know what's going to happen. So I mean, 23 UFC wins now, tied the most wins in UFC history. Donald Cerrone, Jim Miller. I mean, there's just. Maybe he's been on the wrong end of some questionable splits too. So this is like, this is getting one back. What was the fight? When he fought Brendan Schaub, or he won that one? I remember it was terrible. I remember the fight.
Every close decision he wins. somehow.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's like, he's not,
Well, especially in this like back half of his
Yeah.
back chapter of his career, which like who cares if I'm being real, right? Like I understand
if
you're
I'm Jay Collier, I care.
if you're Jay Collier and you Jay
That's rough for
Collier,
Jake. That's rough for
no,
Jake.
hold on.
I
Let me say
understand.
because if you're Jay Collier and Jay Collier's friends, coaches, family, whatever, I'm sure you very much care. But other than that, like Andre's a legend, dude. Like let's let him get a couple of these every once in a while. This dude is 43 years old.
Every once in a while.
This dude is 43
I
years
got it.
old, and I tweeted this tonight. But like, he is now on his longest winning streak as a UFC fighter since 2002 to 2006. I was in high school. I'm like mid 30s right now. I'm a grown man in my mid 30s who has a child on the way and a wife. Like that dude, I was in high school the last time he won this many UFC fights in a row, or like more UFC fights than this in a row. That's unbelievable, man. That is unbelievable. He is 43 years old and still just doing it, making these weird, ugly, gross, close fights with all these younger dudes. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Maybe Jed was on something, is all I'm going to say when he called him the heavyweight goat.
Jed's definitely on something.
That's unrelated to this. So this was his what 66th pro fight. Is that wrong? Am I crazy? This is like fight number professional fight. I think number 60. Excuse me, 56. I'm sorry, I added, but either way, only 56 fights. I apologize. His 56th pro fight. He's 43 years old. So at this point, listen, if you can't finish Andrei Arlovski, you lose. This is the new rule. If you go to a decision, you don't need no judges needed. No judges needed. It's if you got to look at that clock all the time. Like, oh my god, I'm like a minute away from losing. You have to finish him for it to be considered a win. Because if you cannot, he is so old now. Which I say this respectfully, so old now and so shop worn. If you cannot beat him, then you lost. You lose the decision. You have to finish. That's the rule. That's the rule now.
It's the rule. It's set in stone. We have all voted on it. Everybody in the MMA community voted on it. It already happened.
Yeah.
It's set in stone. It's done. Also,
Okay, so-
like I know people joking around about giving him a title shot tonight. Like, let's just do it, and somehow he'll end up winning this very gross, very ugly decision that he probably shouldn't have won, and then people will be mad and like let's just keep this going. Let's keep this going as long as we can keep it going.
I mean, do like AK for on to the next one. Like every time Arlovski fights and wins, I match him up with the same guy every single time. And that same guy, every time he fights and wins, I match him up with Arlovski. Is it time to do Arlovski versus Alexander Romanov now? Is it time?
Is that how you host?
Every single time?
Yes, it is time. It is time. And again, Alexander Romanov, if you don't get a finish, you lost.
You lose.
No, I hate that fight. Don't do that fight.
don't do that to Andre. Don't do that to Andre.
Yeah, first of all, why do you want to do that to Andre? What did Andre do to you?
Arlovski versus Parker Porter. How about that?
Yeah, I like that.
That's how we
Parker's
have.
gonna fight coming up.
Let's just keep
whoever he's
giving
fighting.
Andre.
Don't worry about him, and we'll fill Andre in.
Give Andre the lower tier guys in this heavyweight division, and let's see how long he can keep winning. Like, let's just do this as an experiment.
Yeah, Andre versus that heavyweight. You go, oh, he's still in the UFC. One of those guys.
Jarvis Daniel versus Andrei Arlovski coming up.
What about
let's do a rematch? Just do a rematch with Jake. Let's just run it back.
Yeah.
what about big fat boy Chris Barnett? That'd be a fun fight.
No.
How dare you?
Andre Arlovski has never been an exciting.
First of all, the disrespect,
No.
the way you address Chris Barnett.
I'm stunned. I can't.
Yeah.
I have some.
But you know what? Let's talk about the other gentleman you mentioned, Mr.
Yeah.
Heck.
We have to talk about Romanov.
Is Alexander Romanov ready for a top 15 opponent, even though he's expected to do that Chisha with minus 2200? By the way, let me just say this before we address this. The craziest conversation we had in our Slack channels today was about Alexander Romanov and where his rankings are, because I'm just going to come out and say it. What I did with Arman Sarukian at 155 in our rankings, I'm not going to do exactly that with Romanov, but it's going to be pretty damn close. Romanov is going to go from unranked to probably a top 10 guy in my heavyweight rankings come June 1st.
Who you
it's
bumping
very
out?
possible.
Who's out?
I totally might be there with you.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys who are on the wings. And here's why. Looking at the UFC ranked top 15 right now, he is a minus 1,000 favorite against most of those guys. Like most of those from like 7 to 15, at least a minus 500 favorite. And then against like Walt Harris against, Shamil Abdurakhimov, those guys. He's a minus 1,000 favorite against all those guys. I would comfortably pick him easily without hesitation against 2 of the top 5 guys in the UFC heavyweight division right now. Like, I think he's that good.
Let me cut in real fast because I'm curious where you see him at. So I'm looking at the UFC rankings right now. Tom Aspinall's number 6.
So
I don't know that I would favor him. I don't know that I would favor him beating Tom, but Volkov is number 7, and that point is Volkov, Rosenstruck, Tybura, and that's when it starts getting a little weird.
Yeah.
Is that where you would the cutoff of like I would absolutely favor him to beat him? Because I think I would definitely favor him to beat Volkov.
100%. Yeah, he's a minus 500 favorite against Volkov. He's like a minus 1,000 favorite against Jairzinho. A little closer to Tybura. Doc is massive favorite against all these guys. He's a gigantic favorite. Tommy Aspinall gets a little hairy. Derek Lewis, I certainly favor him to win that fight.
Ooh.
Curtis Blades,
and Tuivasa
would be Tai Tuivasa. I favor him to beat Tai Tuivasa.
So Tai Tuivasa,
yeah, probably.
Wow. So you would have him. So theoretically, you could have him like. Where do you have Stipe ranked at?
I think he's 2.
I think he's probably 2 for you or 3.
So you would pick Romanov over Stipe right now?
No.
I
don't know. I'd have to think about it. I had to think about it, but probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, it's tricky.
It's close. It's something I would have to think about.
He's hard to rank. He is Romanov.
It's a really bizarre case with him because like the way that he has sort of been viewed just generally, it only seems like until very recently that people have even opened their eyes to him because like he's 5 fights deep in the UFC. Like he's been in the UFC for 2 or 3 years at this point, but the way he looked tonight was obviously very, very different from the way he looked when he came in, right? He had a lot of baby fat. He was kind of just like a generic looking heavyweight. Like tonight he looked like a monster, man. Like whatever the new look is, like he looks like he has leveled up physically and he was already there like in a lot of different ways before that. So like whatever this is, I'm all aboard this train because that dude looks like he's going to be a problem for a while and he's only 31.
I think it was 244 for the weigh-in last week against Chase Sherman, and he was like 237 for the weigh-in this week. So he actually lost like 8 more pounds for this weigh-in.
He had 6-pack, yeah. Like this is not the same dude we saw even last year. Like this is crazy. No. The metamorphosis this guy's had.
The way this question is phrased it's an easy yes. Is he ready for a top 15 opponent? I mean, that's an easy yes. That's yes right off the bat. So for me, it's gonna be tricky. So I'm looking at my own rankings right now. So this is got a little inside rankings baseball for you guys. So my bottom half my number 15, Phil DeFries, KSW's champion, Ryan Bader, Bellator's champion, and then Sergey Pavlovich, who's been doing some damage in the UFC's heavyweight division. I think I would put Romanov above Ryan Bader. But it does feel a bit weird to put him above like Phil DeFries, maybe a little bit easier. I do think that the competition that Romanov has been beating is somewhat comparable to what Phil DeFries has been facing in KSW, so I don't hate that. Ryan Bader, I guess we have to see what happens with Czech Congo, or maybe it shouldn't matter. I guess you put him above Bader. Sergey Pavlovich is interesting because Sergey Pavlovich just smoked Abdurakhimov, and that's a better win than any win that Romanov has yet. Now, then again, if you matched up Romanov and Pavlovich, I would favor Romanov. But Pavlovich is a hell of a prospect as well. So I don't know. I'm also, I think, comparatively moderate when it comes to like throwing people up my rankings. I'm very slow. I'm probably the slowest, most like I need to really, really, really see something before I give someone a spot. So he's definitely entering my top 15.
Yeah, you still have Connor ranked in the top 10. Yes.
Who'd beat him? Who's beneath him that would beat him? Show me, huh?
Dude, he has one. High enough. Connor has one win over like
I'd pick him over Tony
Ferguson.
I'd pick him over Tony Ferguson
in the last 5 years.
Why is Tony Ferguson ranked higher than him? It's BS. It's classic anti-Connor media.
That's focus, okay?
Oh, sorry. Too long. Didn't listen. Romanov will enter my top 15. But probably not fly up as high as it will on some of your guys because I don't always agree with Case's methodology, but I do agree. It's like this win. It's weird that this win over Chase Sherman,
literally the worst UFC heavyweight, literally the worst UFC heavyweight.
If not the worst UFC heavyweight,
It's just
I genuinely think
remind-
it's how he.
ever.
I genuinely think it's how easy it was, but
I
also
understand.
just
I
how he
understand
looked.
it. It's how you
it
look.
sounds
Like
You can
looking at a
project.
dude
You
who's
can
ripped is
project.
a little bit
Absolutely.
different for most people than looking at the guy with all the baby fat.
I get it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
it sounds a lot like the conversations we were having about Hamzat after the Leach fight. Like just throw him into the top 5. And now we're having the same argument about Shaq Rat, who's had until the Gilbert Burns win had better wins than Hamzat.
Actually,
Also,
I want
I'm seeing people in the chat throw out that like he struggled against Juan Espino, but like Juan Espino is legitimately like pretty good, and also like just the fact that he hasn't fought a lot in over the like he's had a very slow schedule. I think like ruins people's perception because he could actually have been a very good heavyweight.
Juan Espino is
And that's
very
a
handsome
matchup.
too, and that's very hard.
He's
It's
very
very hard to
handsome.
punch a handsome man.
And that's a tough matchup.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
tough, like, just
That's
stylistically.
a style to make fights thing, yeah, for sure.
I think I compare Romanov very much like to Islam Makhachev before he fought Hooker. We all knew Hooker? We all knew how good Makhachev was, but we couldn't really justify it ranking wise. And I think that's how we feel about Romanov. We know he's that good, but it's kind of hard to say. Well, you know, I would probably pick him over Stipe maybe, but we can't rank him at number 3. So that's the issue with him. But yeah, but definitely top. I hope he gets top 15. I hope the UFC is gonna have a tough time finding someone to fight him too. I think so. Cool.
It's just so funny.
That's my
It's so
biggest
funny
concern.
Yeah.
It's so funny to me and just unusual because like of all the divisions in the UFC, heavyweights are the one division that more than any other else gets expedited. Like if you're coming in and you're 2-0 and those are first round finishes, you're probably fighting a top 5, top 10 guy pretty quickly. And somehow everybody missed it with this one. Like this dude's 5 fights deep. He's been in the UFC 3 years. Like, and just now everybody's starting to get on the train. It's all just weird.
You
But
could
the bettors
watch
didn't, though.
MMA fightings. You could watch MMA fightings, UFC London, pre-fight media scrum, where I brought up Alexander Romanov, Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blades, and Dawkins to UFC President Dana White. Anyway, Casey, what you were saying?
Oh no.
And what was Dana's
correct.
reaction? What did he say about Romanov?
Who?
He obviously no-sold it and talked about Tom Aspinall.
He
Why'd I
had
ask that?
no idea who that is. Let's talk about some other fights on the card real quickly.
And on to the next one. Listeners know how much AK and I have loved Romanov since day one.
I feel like we all have.
do you
been.
think-
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh yeah, we suplexing his coaches. How can you not like this guy?
Also,
do you
people need
think
to start
UFC
spelling his goddamn name right. There's no E.
Yeah, no E
in
no E.
Alexander.
There's no E.
In fairness,
Clowns
that's
in
a
the comments
bit of like
section.
a weird one, right? That's easy
And his
to
first
bring
name?
up.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah,
E.
there's no
It's
E.
just
There's no
DR.
Also, it really makes no difference.
Alex and Doctor.
Oh, it's like the
And
whole
to also be
pizza.
fair, the UFC had the E in there until like 2 fights ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We
It
usually
doesn't,
go by
and let's be honest,
But
it
they've
doesn't matter.
removed
It's all anglicizing. It's all anglicizing of a Russian name. It doesn't matter. It's just whether his choice, whether he wants the E in there. But it's not like it really doesn't matter. But you're right.
Jose,
Without the E
let's
is
begin with-
the correct way.
Jose, let's begin with you. Did we see Darren Elkins in the UFC for the last time, or are they giving him a new contract after this performance tonight?
I'm sure they're going to give Darren Elkins some sort of contract. He seems like he's down to fight anyone. And as Dana White has said many times, I love fighters like that. They're down to scrap with whoever. I feel like you could just give just like a contract and hide the name, and Darren Elkins would be like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, the UFC likes fighters like that. So I'm sure they. Plus, he trains at Alpha Male, and he's like Faber and Dana are obviously boys. Like Dana seems to have a soft spot for a lot of those Alpha Male fighters. So I'm sure we'll see him back.
Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be a crime if they didn't bring it back. He's been in the I think he's on like year 12 in the UFC. Like he's just one of these guys who's always around. He's always willing to fight anybody, and you know exactly what you're gonna get from him. Like at this point, like I feel like at some point in his career he was a little boring, but at this point it's just like every fight he's in is just unbelievable to watch. It's great theater. Like you're watching this like blood and guts scraps every single time this guy gets in the cage, and every time the other person is like surprised that the Homer Simpson strategy of just like, I'm going to let this guy punch himself out on my face until all of a sudden he's tired, like works on them. Like every time the opponent's surprised. So it's tremendous. You have to re-sign him. Also, low key, Darren Elkins won 3 of his last 4. So like, come on, bring him back.
Truth.
And also, I don't think he's a company guy. I don't think he's the kind of guy who's going to break the bank for them. They'll give him his raise. They'll give him a raise that I'm sure he's happy with. And it's a raise that I bet if we got a chance to look at it, we'd be like, this guy deserves to get paid 10 times, 20 times more than he's actually getting paid. So So yeah, it's a good thing he's going to re-sign. This will be with the UFC. It's good for the fans, but man, I hope Darren Elkins and his management team can just get a few more Somalians in there, because they deserve it. This guy's taking some real long-term damage, man. And I know he wouldn't have it any other way. Well, actually, not true. I think they asked him they asked him, do you enjoy being in wars? And he was like, hell no. He's like,
I think his family would appreciate the other way.
Yeah, no, but I mean, as far as like being a fighter, like the other question is like a part of this question is, do you think he should retire on a high note? Yeah, I think I'd love Darren Elkins to retire and just if he had enough money to and just be happy the rest of his life. I have a feeling he loves fighting and likes getting paid to do it, and won't be seeing him retire anytime soon.
Darren Elkins is low key one of my favorite fighters. I'm not even being ironic about it. I just actually love his gritty style, and it's one of those things like it sounds weird, but after training MMA, I really appreciate Darren Elkins' style. It is gruesome and ugly, but there's a lot of freaking technique in it and stuff, and that is a style that fits him. And that's kind of
It's really effing hard.
It's really effing hard the way he fights, and it's really effing hard to fight him. You have to be just such a higher level. No, once you hit like Chad Mendez guys, and you hit the higher level 45ers, then you ran to proms. But Tristan Conley's, good lord, you don't fight that guy and come out the same. Yeah, he ruined Mirsad Bektic. Yeah, that guy was like one of the biggest prospects in the sport, and ruined him. So love Darren Elkins.
Yeah.
And listen, we talk about Arlovsky setting records. Elkins extending his record he already had, now his 24th UFC featherweight appearance and 16th win, only behind Max Holloway. So is Max the two most successful featherweights in UFC history so far? Max Holloway, and right behind him, Darren Elkins.
What a freaking stat! That
Amazing.
is unreal. Oh yeah, he's definitely resigning the UFC, and I wish there could be a UFC Hall of Fame wing of just like. You were never that great, but man, fuck it, you're in. That's
the Jim Miller wing.
Jim Miller wing. Well, yeah. Jim Miller wing. Shot. Never ever fought for a title, so I never even thought about you're going to fight for a title. But god dang, we love you.
Also, someone in there mentioned Tristan Connolly, his opponent. Like, what a weird couple of years for Tristan Connolly. That dude has only had 3 UFC fights. He's been in the UFC since 2019. The first one, he debuts as a welterweight on short notice and beats the giant Michel Pereira, and then he's 0-2 since as a featherweight. Makes no sense.
Crazy. He did give Pat Sabatini not a very difficult, but his toughest fight, because we've seen what Sabatini has done since then. And then this is a gritty, tough fight with Darren Elkins, and Connolly's good, man. I hope they keep him around. I hope they keep him around because I like after the fight, I loved that fight. I loved it so much.
Good.
I thought it was the fight of the night up until the main event. And someone was like, "Well, Natan Levy and Mike Breeden should be fight of the night over that." I'm like, "No, you're insane." Levy Breeden was fun, but it was just 2 guys getting in there and just swinging street fight style. These guys are in there. At least it was technical, and there was no disrespect to Levy and Breeden because they're young fighters. They're on the rise, but. I mean, Jesus. I was exhausted after watching those two fight. Tristan Gordat closes this up. Thoughts on Grant Dawson's performance? Think he's going to get a top 15 fighter in his next fight? AK, we'll discuss this tomorrow and on to the next one. Sean, Grant Dawson.
I'll say quickly. I won't name who he's going to get, but not top 15. Probably not top 15. It's a very deep division, but it's a very deep division.
Yeah, where are we putting Grant? Yeah.
I'll be surprised if he gets top 15 because you look at the UFC's top 15 right now. You're looking at the outside of it: Diego Ferreira, Brad Riddell, Dan Hooker. Doesn't feel like he's in that range yet to be able to get somebody like that and dangle that type of matchup. He's a good talent. He's obviously a good talent though, man. Like he's still young, 28 years old. He's undefeated in the UFC. It does feel like we've seen sort of like that he does have a ceiling in this 155 division. Like the Jared Gordon one was definitely a come from behind. Like you Hail Marying it out. He drew with Ricky Glenn. So I don't know that he's going to be someone that we're talking in title contention ever, but he's definitely a good talent here at 155, which is the best division in the entire sport and the deepest division in the sport.
You thought he Hail Married that out? I thought he was comfortably up 2 rounds.
Okay, you might be totally right. I was covering boxing today, so I was only seeing.
Fair enough.
He didn't dominate. It was competitive. He didn't dominate, but he did toward the later moments of he was definitely the winner of the fight. Actually, I like what you said. Grant Dawson and Diego. You didn't mention, but Diego Ferrer. I think Diego Ferrer is coming off 2 losses. Those are fights that make sense. Kind of guys switching spots. See if Diego Ferrer is still a top dude anymore. And yeah. And last question. This is important. You guys probably won't understand this, but
Right. And by the way, I don't think Grant Dawson has surpassed Claudio Puelles in the Jalen Turners of the world just yet.
gotcha.
So I think those guys are like the ones knocking on the door of the top 15 right now. For Christ's sake, really? Sean and Jose's take on the tomato controversy. Was there actually controversy here? Like, what is
a tomato? What is a tomato? Guys.
Oh, what is it?
It's a fruit.
Is that the
It's a fruit.
Is that the controversy?
If someone goes, it's a vegetable, would you correct them?
Yes.
No.
Maybe in 1998 when I was trying to be an idiot, like douchey 7-year-old.
Know it all. Yeah.
That was a very like grade school, high school thing to like point out. Like
now,
like,
if someone just goes,
"Tomato is a vegetable."
Now, if someone calls a tomato a vegetable, I say, okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a single reaction to that.
You know what? Life keeps going on.
I do want to spend this off.
I'm not changing time. It's just it's oh, by the way, like if someone mispronounces something, oh, that's actually pronounced this way. They go, oh, okay. I'm not saying you're a jerk.
You know what's funny? When I'm actually on a date, I actually go out of my way to point this out. I bring it up. It's like one of the. It's like I have. You go on a date. You're prepared. I have multiple topics prepared. One of them is like it's like the conversation's kind of dying down. I go like, tomato, by the way, is a fruit, not a vegetable. And I'll tell you something. I'm very single now, and I don't know why. I don't think there's any connection to that, but.
That has to have 100% success rate.
Do you just order tomato sandwiches on the reg, and that's how this comes up?
I mean, if I can to segue it more elegantly, I will. But again, like I said, sometimes I'll just bring it up, just so I can sound smart. Usually, it's not received very well, but someday.
Yeah. So I'm assuming on your Tinder profile, it's all like I enjoy mixing in the martial arts, no hookups, tomatoes a fruit.
No, it's ask me what a tomato is.
Oh, ask me what a tomato is.
I'm trying to get a conversation started.
Hashtag keep the fruits and vegetables apart.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, there we go. That's all right.
One second. I have quick question about this because I was arguing with somebody earlier about this, and this baffled me when I saw it. So my initial reaction to seeing the tomato thing, obviously the Joe Riggs thing, was like, holy shit, like that dude's just eating a tomato like an apple. Like that's really gross.
Yeah.
That is really, really gross. And I was told by a lot of people on social media that no, it's not gross at all. And they just do it. That's how they eat tomatoes. No, that's completely gross, right? I'm not crazy.
No. I hate tomatoes, but I know many people who will just munch into a tomato.
Who do you know? Name a person.
Who does that? Everyone in my family. I can't stand them. My brother loves tomatoes.
Oh, well, that explains
raw?
a lot.
She just grabs a tomato like, oh, this is good. And just bites it.
They'll eat it like they just like it. I like tomatoes like mixed with things, but like I could not bite into a tomato. That sounds. Shaheen, I'm with you on that. Like I think that's disgusting, but I know a lot of people who do it, so it's not strange to me at all.
No other opinions? Okay, I feel like I'm crazy. I feel like I'm crazy.
I have zero opinions on eating tomatoes like an apple. No?
Have you done it?
I have no more opinions. We talked about tomatoes for
I have
30 minutes on the Q&A.
Oh, okay.
I have done it, and I was like, it just happened. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's not.
Someone gave me a tomato, and I ate it.
Yeah, it's not weird.
Weird.
Listen, if you're hungry and all there's
Dude,
fridges is
today
tomato,
I was hungry. The only thing I had was a bag of spinach, and I ate that.
I mean, I eat
that's way less weird. I do that.
No, I eat raw. I eat raw vegetables all the time just for.
It's a fruit.
Munching on a tomato like that is so gross. Whatever. I don't know. I'll drop it.
Him stuffing that tomato then in the other guy's mouth was not gross. Just the idea of it, just already it was already gross, and then the next part didn't matter.
Yeah.
next time on the Vegan Power Hour, how to become a raw vegan and make it work out for you. And until then, everybody, for Jose, for Sean, AK, can't wait to see how your dating life goes the rest of this year. I am Mike Hack. Thank you to EKC on the production. Good night, everybody. Great night of fights.